This is a video about the Noatak river trip taken August and September of 2006. Danny, Tom, and I were on our way via Seattle and the food court to Fairbanks, where we went shopping and got a van ride on the haul road that travels along the Alaska pipeline up to Prudhoe Bay. It was interesting rolling and bumping through the taiga and taking a peek at the monumental engineering feat that the Alaska pipeline is. It was good to be in Alaska again, crossing the Yukon River and getting a perspective on a giant wilderness, a place that is fear-inducing in some ways and very settling in others. I'll get into that when we actually get on the river here after we fly out of Coldfoot.
Some of it's still in bloom a little bit up there on the hills.
You still can't just forget about everything else and concentrate on that section 24/7, and let the other. Now, like Georgie said, that place that's gone to hell so bad that they can't possibly cut the holes out. The only way to really fix it up right would be to haul in some material. Yeah, I agree with that too. Danny straightened that slope mountain area out. Did you see him blade up there when he first started cutting that? No. And it was pulling the front wheels off his grader because it was so bad. There was nothing left on top.
This would be awesome to see it.
But ever since they got up there in D1, those guys are out there all the time. They got something to work with finally. It doesn't do good to pull the niches if all you're going to pull up is 3-foot fucking boulders, All the other crap too is flattening tires down. I got a bolt through my tire there, about a 10-inch bolt that came through. Went through and come off the sidewall right by where it goes down the knee and hit my rim. After it was Jimmy Daly last week, and he had a flat on the construction, and he had another one over there by Tulip. Look at this, man. Look at that.
So we started to get views of the Brooks Range as we bumped along, and of course it's a spectacular view. 1,500 miles is this huge arc of mountains. It's impressive. Coldfoot is, as I said, midway in just this little way station of a restaurant and actually about 200 rooms. Coyote Air at the airstrip there is run by Dirk and Danielle, and they're there for the summer months, and then during the winter they take their kids, quite young, they're less than 10, and they haul them to Peru for the winter, where they have an apartment in a Land Rover, and as Danielle says, it's nice and warm down there, and they love the people, and they've got this great little garden, and that's where the vegetables are grown. Here's our junk that we're going to load on to Dirk's Beaver and take off, fly for 2 hours, and end up at the headwaters of the Noatak River. The Noatak is in the gates of the Arctic. The flight into the Brooks was almost worth the trip itself. It was just completely spectacular, flying along the axis of the Brooks over this happens to be the St. Johns River, and out there in the distance there's a small homestead where I guess a guy and his wife are still living, and they raised their kids there. Flew over the Arrogetch peaks, and luckily we could see them. Very spectacular. I could see that these would be difficult peaks to get up because of weather conditions. And unfortunately for us, the weather condition of an early fall snowstorm was going to dash our original plan of climbing the highest peak in Gates of the Arctic, which is Mount Igikpak. And I'll show a picture of that a little bit later and what it looked like. It was just a wall plastered with snow, and we didn't want to be doing 5th class rock and with 2 to 6 inches of snow over it. Dirk hadn't been here in a couple of years, but he just kind of cranked the plane in here, took a look at the gravel bar, and said, "That looks good." So this is our first camp. We were really happy to find tons of driftwood for campfire, and that first night the Arctic sunset just went completely off, and it was beautiful. Igikpak was, as I said, out of the question. As you can see, here's the fall snow that fell just a couple weeks ago. It had been a really wet summer, and this was one of the first clear days that that we heard from the locals that they had had. And there's Igikpak with the spectacular tower on top of it, and unclimbable for us at least. And we had another incident at this camp that kept us from climbing Igikpak. We made an alternate plan. We were going to go and explore the headwaters, leave our stuff, leave the raft, take 4 or 5 days of food, and just scramble around the higher peaks at the headwaters. And we were pretty psyched that we had a consolation prize that would take us into what we felt from the map would be a spectacular side trip, even though we weren't going to climb the peak. But we had a visitor, and that visitor happened to be a very bold grizzly bear. As a matter of fact, the bear walked right into camp and got to within 75 feet of us, 50 feet of us. It's not that little.
Yeah, I wonder if he's kind of considered one of those barren ground grizzlies, one of the smaller ones. Yeah.
So we decided to pack it up and head down the river, which was what we had to do. The bear exhibited a behavior that was not going to allow us to sleep at night. So we got into our rhythm of packing it up and shoving off and floating. And the river was, oh gosh, just a really gentle float.
Oh, it's so sweet. Oh, it's so beautiful. This is wonderful. Oh, that looks like
one of the more spectacular or interesting parts of the trip was the wildlife. This muskox grazing, it was like seeing a dinosaur. And we ended up seeing grizzly bears on a daily basis. The tundra was in full fall bloom, if that's the right way to describe it. Absolutely gorgeous gamut of color out there, and it was color everywhere. Danny got into his ritualistic carrying of the firewood. He thought that would help keep the bears away. it wasn't going to. We saw bear tracks everywhere, and I mean everywhere. Every stop we made, the gravel bars, the sand bars were littered with tracks, and there was no way to avoid
Right on the edge of the tidal line there.
the bears.
You know where the creek comes up and all catches into the willow? Everything else is not even around. I'll be back. Yeah, got my gun. Frame your thinking in that sense.
Those are our maps spread out behind Danny, the 400-mile long set of maps. Our original plan, very original, was to float the whole Noatak, but then when we realized that would take probably a month, we decided to get a little more real and take it a little more easy and enjoy our campfires. We did go on a number of side hikes up into the hills, of which there are hundreds in the Brooks Range, and it just becomes a matter of putting your finger down on the map and saying, hey, let's go over there. The hiking is easy, not too tough, and the views are unbelievable from the high points. And what really trips me out about the Brooks Range, mountains in general, is how many mysteries are out there to discover. And I don't know if that's what keeps me going back, or if it's the solace from day-to-day work and the pressures that I feel from just making a living, or being with friends. That's part of it. Or being with my family. That's a big part of it. And I guess it's like a piece of artwork. I just sort of get, not even sort of, that's the wrong way to put it. I do just get kicked in the gut by this feeling that, man, that our universe, our world, our lives are inexplicable, and this might be the only time that it kind of makes sense for me. It's when I'm out there in these places, paddling with Tom, collecting firewood with Danny, taking a picture. That's my reality.
Everybody stand down, nobody will get hurt. It's a 44, no, it's not a 44, it's a 10 millimeter. Semi-auto.
You're like a caribou.
Yeah, so Danny felt like a caribou, and we were hoping to see a quintessential picture of the migration of caribou, swimming, trotting, whatever they had to do to get across the Noatak on their way south from the North Slope. And one of the things that I thought about was the Noatak, which means land between the mountains, and what the Aboriginal people were doing. I know what they were doing. They were surviving up here, and it's just a conduit from the sea to come up the Noatak and hunt and fish and make a living on this waterway. This was one of the 14
Mom.
bears that we saw. We saw bears on a daily basis
bear.
for 2 weeks, and the
Good
mother and
bear.
cubs got
Back
a
in the
little
shoulder.
too close for comfort at that point.
Oh, say the F word again.
No, we were running.
Yeah, we're running. Everyone knows now. Your character comes out. It's on film. It's recording.
So as the trip went on, fall came on stronger. Mornings got colder. Weather was still really nice, perfect, crisp fall days, but we still had not seen evidence of the caribou migration, and this part of the Central Brooks is the biggest part of the Brooks Range herds. This is 450,000 animals, the largest mammal migration on the planet, and we'd seen only a couple of animals until we climbed this, I forget, I think it was 5,000, 6,000 foot peak above our camp, and we got to the top. It was really cold. I remember that. Windy, cold mostly because of the wind. And then as we were hiking down, we got to a little sheltered spot, and we hunkered down for lunch and heard this clattering on the cobble, and lo and behold, there were the animals, and I think we probably saw around 50, all heading up and over the range to the south. And by this, let's see, the route they were taking, this route, they would end up somewhere in the Kobuk Valley. So we were headed out into the plains of the Noatak, out of the mountains, beyond the boundary of Gates of the Arctic, and I was bummed out. I didn't think that out there on the plains that the landscape would be all that interesting. I was envisioning just a flat expanse with not much to look at, except for Danny getting up in the morning and wondering where his coffee was. One of the other features of the Brooks is the river drainages, the tributaries of the Noatak that happen every 2 to 3 miles along the river, and each one of these drainages, creeks or rivers, is another world to explore. And this happens to be the Igning River. Danny and I walked up this, I can't remember, maybe 8 or 9 miles. The walking was along gravel bars. We had to cross the river a few times just to go from bar to bar. Looking for those drop antlers, and at one time, which I thought was a very distinctive image of drop antlers in fall color, we saw probably 12 times along this hike, and so at first I was very excited about this as far as taking a picture was concerned, and then after seeing the drop antlers a lot, it wasn't as interesting. And we saw a lot of caribou migrating up the river drainage, and to me what it looked like is that these animals were hell-bent on moving to their winter grounds, and they were somewhat wary, but really it just looked like they were on a mission to get to where they were going to be okay for the winter season.
Got it. Yeah.
Boiler. We do need a
no.
Listen, don't get it in the coffee grounds. Please. I love you, but that's
You're no less a man because you freak out every once in a while. It's gonna get wet. Oh.
You're gonna get wet. Oh yeah.
No, I'm not.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
Standing waves. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Hang a while, see if I'm on the horn. Let's you and I paddle.
So after we'd been out there for a while, the paddling was getting to us. We were paddling for sometimes 7 hours a day, and sometimes the river would turn back on itself, and we'd gain a mile, and then we'd lose a mile, and the headwinds would slow our progress down considerably. We had to paddle in order to make any
help, but
progress. The river
I wanna
did not
watch.
move that quick.
He's kicking up sand.
So we made it to Kavacharak Creek, where we were going to get picked up, and we had a spectacular thing happen. I have never seen a dawn like this where 360 degrees, in other words, you could stand in one spot and spin a full circle, and there was colorful light in the sky all the way around, something I'd never seen before. The night before, a full moon had come up over the Schwatka Mountains to the south, and to the north the northern lights were going off in curtains of green and crimson. So we had this unbelievable light show to end our trip, and it was a great way for the light to say goodbye to the brooks. So the trip didn't end up being the most spectacular of anything, or the greatest climb, or the greatest hike, or the most radical rapids, but it was something to remember at the very least. I am really grateful that I got to practice my art, be with my friends, come home safe, that the world didn't blow up in my absence. I'm not that important that the world needs me to decide whether to blow up or not. Back to the funk of Coldfoot, and spent the night, got showers, and a van ride back to the lower 48, out of country.